Hi, welcome to Dyslexia Solutions, Marianne Cintron the YouTube. We have a special guest who's returning. He is one of our genius dyslexia adults, and he is a designer of high-performance cars. He had an earlier interview telling us how he got into that role, and he also is the founder of Dyslexia Hacks, which is a very interesting company he designed. I hope he talks about that. But let me introduce you to Matthew Head, and he can introduce himself a little bit deeper and tell you a little bit about what he's been doing and what he's doing now. Come on to the stage, Matt.
Hello there. Thank you for having me back on again.
It's our pleasure.
Things have changed quite a bit since we last spoke, because as you alluded to in your intro, at that time I was designing high performance cars. Well, recently I've moved into working with electric vehicles.
Oh, good.
Yes.
So hence we have our hybrids, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a full electric vehicle. So I think in the United States, have you ever heard of a company called Rivian?
Okay.
So they're an electric manufacturer over in the States. Well, the UK's got their own version of it called Arrival, and they do develop their own technology and working on developing vans and till recently developing buses. So I've been on that, working quite busily trying to develop the next generation of sustainable transport.
Okay. Well, you know, that sounds like that'd be the up and up career to move into, doesn't it?
Yes, it would be. And I mean, it's been an interesting thing to jump into, actually. From, as I said, we were doing race cars last time, high performance cars, where it was a big sort of Chevy V8 at the front. Now it's all electric vehicles with batteries underneath, and that has its very own design challenges versus doing a internal combustion engine car.
Yeah. So how did you survive COVID?
Survive COVID. Well, I must have been one of the few that I've not actually caught COVID yet. So,
oh my goodness, what's taking you so long?
well, yeah, it's surprising. We had a vaccination scheme over here in the UK that got us ahead of that. But I've been lucky, touch wood, that I've not really been ill that often. So yeah, so apart from losing my job during COVID and being made redundant, which swapped me into the car job, and then we're talking 2 years later where I'm now working with the electric vehicles. And obviously other things have stopped it around here. We're sort of living slightly differently, but yeah, working through COVID. And as you alluded to in your intro, Dyslexia Life Hacks, my kind of side thing, is a product of COVID almost, by the fact that I did it late 2020 while we were all isolated at home, and I was at work at the time. So yeah, I developed the website then, and it's still going with all its hacks on it. And I've got a podcast series where episode 36 goes live tomorrow, called the Dyslexia Life Hacks Show, which is a sort of a long form podcast, more like the Tim Ferriss show or Joe Rogan, where it goes for about an hour at a time, talking to various guests and pulling people in, similar to what you do here, but with highlighting people who work in professional roles or assistive technology, and how just getting to know people who are dyslexic, who work quite well in industry, and showing that you can be dyslexic. And as an accountant, or I've had lawyers on, librarian was an interesting one, and things like that.
Well, that's exciting. So I'm going to have some competition now.
I think it's slightly different format.
Yeah, nobody's doing this, interviewing dyslexic adults who have accomplished so much. And I think our dyslexic population wants to hear about that, because we need to encourage our kids about the heroes of today, not just Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci and, Spielberg. What about our peers, or the peers of the adults? So, well, that'll be interesting to listen to your interviews too.
Yeah, thank you. That was kind of some of the motivation behind it. Sort of slightly unashamedly, it's aimed at the sort of younger me, that if I had, as you cite the people you were just talking about, where yes, they are great examples of successful dyslexic, but as a 19, 20-year-old just out of college, that feels completely separate from me. They're like sort of up in the higher echelons, but talking to people who've got sort of professional jobs, who've got degrees, and then work their way up through a career, and how they sort of navigate life. And it's just somebody sort of quote unquote, who's not famous, but very much that way. It's great, talking to people who've, studied PhDs. I'd have never done that as a dyslexic person, but this person did,
Well, and you never know. It's just the passion, the calling. I never thought I'd get a doctorate either. Even though I'm not dyslexic, I still never thought I would get a doctorate after two
Yeah.
masters, too much school. But let me ask you a question. I'm
Go on
actually
then.
going to be assessing a college student for
Mhm.
dyslexia because he has a class at Juilliard and um, he wants to get into this art school, but he needs a 4-year degree to get to the art school. So
Oh,
then he
okay.
gets back into, okay, so I need accommodations and everything. Have you met the college kids who have mentors to help them also go into the fields that they're interested in? Or how do they break through into those careers? Like he wants to be in I think the entertainment, he wants to be in the entertainment world. He sings beautifully, I understand, but he might
Okay.
end up in the background as a support person for entertainment.
Mm-hmm. So I haven't met anybody yet who's really in the entertainment field. I did have somebody who did some acting for a while before they changed careers later on in life. But it's a slightly different system here. And most people I talk to are British rather than, it's a slightly different system in America. So we have DSA, Disabled Student Allowance in the UK. So if somebody gets picked up that they are dyslexic and then diagnosed or stated for dyslexia, they can apply for a government funded scheme that will help them through it. So they might get some coaching, assistive technology, the extra time and things like that to help try and level the playing field with it. So that's kind of how the British system works. That does still rely on people getting assessed in the first place, which can be the problem, can't it? Where people don't know. I've spoken to people and they're like, I had the inkling as a 10-year-old that something wasn't right here. And it wasn't until they were 18, 19, 21 at the last year university. And they're like, oh, it's this thing called dyslexia. What's going on? So,
Yes, and so all that hard work, all those years, right?
yes, yeah. And it's only as it really starts to crunch. I was interviewing somebody a couple of weeks ago and they joined a load of societies in the final year because they found out they were dyslexic, got the right interventions, and suddenly had all this spare time that they'd spent studying to do other things.
Yeah. It's funny because as I get older, I see the
Mm.
need and I just keep creating jobs for myself. Um,
Well,
right
that's all
now,
right.
I'm working on a project to help. Even the kids aren't even dyslexic; they're just in kindergarten and first grade, but they just are
Mm-hmm.
have fallen behind so bad because of COVID. So I'm going through some kindergarten workbooks and explaining to teachers and parents how to use them because my kids used them over 25 years ago
Oh,
and
wow.
they're
Okay.
amazing. But I can't just bury this. It's like I wake up in the middle of the night with ideas of how to share this and how to train and how to share. And I'm like, wow, I'm not even going to get to slow down a little bit. But
Just
we
an
see a
idea
need.
machine.
That's right. We see a need and we need to step up and help meet that need. And I don't think I'm going to retire because if I retired, I do exactly what I'm doing now. I love what I'm doing. I love helping people learn how to teach kids. And you love helping people be successful if they're dyslexic. And
Mhm. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Like my career is growing quite a bit. So recently they've announced things at my work that mean my job might be under threat. But I'm getting messages on LinkedIn of people who've worked with me before who want me to come maybe work for them, or I'm just getting messages in general like you're suitable for this job. And
yes,
I can't get over since embracing my dyslexia and then making it a thing with the website and the podcast. How it's also helped my own personal life. Like I just seem to be getting better at work, and I think that's something that, to say, trying to promote it to younger people and even adults. You're 30-year-old adult or 40, 35, 40-odd-year-old adult are still struggling with the negative perception they have, and it's like actually the more you can lose the shackles of negative perception, you can start embracing the strong points of your dyslexia and understanding how to deal with some of the weaker sides, like using programs like your own. and then be able to drive yourself forwards. And it surprises me even to this day how much my career has stepped up since I've got extra coaching for dyslexia as well.
That's right. Someone else used the analogy that of a pie. Your life, the dyslexia is just a small slice of your whole pie, of who you are, your personality, how you can do things other people can't do because of your creativity. And the things in your past not only have groomed you to be, be tougher and endure longer, but it's training for something in the future. And I see that all the time for my own life, and dyslexic people need to see that as well.
Yes, I think so. I think so. And it's, the old, because I'm dyslexic, it gets tagged on the end of things that you can't do. And it's like, no, we shouldn't be thinking like that anymore.
Yeah. No more limits. Take off those limits, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Well, is there a burning passion in your heart right now that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, I think we've covered quite a lot of it. Just
Okay.
as I say, it's just sort of
Don't quit and
that,
believe in yourself. And
yeah, that's it. Just remembering that being dyslexic is not a problem, and quite a lot of people seem to go through school thinking it is. When you get past school, or even during school, can get the right interventions, understanding that actually it's a different way of thinking. And yes, you might have a down bit on one profile and a high bit on something else that your peers may not. So it's keeping everything sort of in context rather than just focusing on the negative sides.
some of the things I've encountered by assessing college adults was were the high schools couldn't find their IEPs when they wanted to go to college years later, so they needed to be reassessed. And that's always an option, and I'm very affordable. But I've had people tell me that they've hit plateaus in their jobs because they couldn't read, and they want to be assessed so that they could see if they have dyslexia. Then they want to get the intervention because they want to go to another level in their job. So people that are adults are limited in those jobs. But when I was talking to somebody recently about assessing him, and there's 3 eligibility areas we look for: cognitive, reading ability, and then phonetic ability. And if there's deficits in all 3 of those areas, that's dyslexia. And I said, could you imagine having more time on your assignments, more time on your tests, shorter assignments? He's like, yeah, that's what I want. I just want more time I don't want to take any shortcuts. I just want more time. So sometimes that's all people need.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it is important to, there is a lot out there for help for dyslexia, but sometimes knowing where it is really, really tricky.
When I met with someone this weekend that said they really want to get rid of the labels. And I don't think a label of dyslexic should hold somebody back if they have that mindset that I have a trait of genius. But when it's dyslexia, you know how to remediate. It has to be the multisensory. We call it the science of reading, follow the science of reading. That's a whole other topic. But when you know that you have diabetes, or you have, and not that dyslexia is like diabetes, but when you know what it is specifically, you know what the treatment is.
Yeah.
And so we know dyslexia is neurological in origin. The brain has to be retrained. So how do we retrain the brain?
Yeah, I think so. And it's not that you can't train dyslexic brain, just have come at it from a different angle.
Well, and if you're not retraining the brain to read, you're just looking at how to tackle life through that creative lens. You find a way, if you don't, we want the kids to read so they can graduate from high school, because our statistics are staggering that 35% of high school dropouts are dyslexic. And they're going into, crime and gangs and end up in prison. Our prison rate with illiteracy is the juvenile courts 88%, and the prisons 65.9% are illiterate. So the connection is, if kids aren't reading, their self-esteem is dropping, and that's why we want them reading in middle school, elementary, middle, and high school. But
Yeah.
I've told adults that I've even met at the airport, why you don't need to, you're successful, you're a successful adult. You don't need to read unless you need it for your job. And
I think the reading thing starts to become, particularly when you're younger, it feels like a benchmark of how successful you are at school almost, doesn't it? And how
yes, it
maybe then
does.
tied in with how your self-perception of how smart you are.
Right.
And it's also humans use written word to communicate, don't they? We can't get away from
That's right.
that.
Yeah.
Even I work in quite a creative STEM related industry, but still got email, still get instant messenger.
Yeah.
So there's having a level we can get to, and then finding a job and a niche in life that then lays into your other strengths. But I think that's the same for somebody who's neurotypical, isn't it? Like, took somebody who's neurotypical, maybe they could read 10 novels in a week or on holiday and all that crazy stuff. But they
I,
also need to find their own niche in life, don't they? To find a thing that's fulfilling.
yes. That's
You
a
just
hard
come
thing
at
to
it from a different
do.
way. Yes, it is. Yes.
Even that's a journey. It's a stepping
Yeah, it
stone because
certainly is.
education is my third career.
Yeah.
Even though when I was in college, I thought I'd be a teacher. When I was a young girl, my mom thought I'd be a great teacher, but I just wasn't impressed with the teaching programs. And I really
Okay.
wasn't impressed with the kids being as bratty and undisciplined as they were. I'm like, no way. I mean, I remember seeing a middle school kid that had a pack of cigarettes rolled up in his sleeve, not even middle school, fifth grade, I think, when I went to my first year in UC Santa Barbara, which is a beautiful beach college. And I'm like, I don't want to work with kids who are allowed to even carry cigarettes in their
Yeah,
body.
that's
So
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so I got away, went into retail. I was in retail for 10 years, went into the technical field as a technical writer, because that kind of brought in a little bit of writing, which it really didn't. But I met my husband in that field, so I know that wasn't a mistake. And it wasn't until my kids were in kindergarten and preschool where I volunteered, well, preschool, then kindergarten, and I volunteered in their classrooms. And I really got that passion stirred up to help kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was all a skip, but I needed kids to have that.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I
Without
must
kids, I
admit,
wouldn't be a teacher.
no, but I suppose that's what happens to some people, isn't it? You say
Yeah.
that you go back to the kindergarten, and they're like, "Ooh, there's something here I need to investigate." Yes.
Yeah. I saw how strategically those teachers were trained. And then,
Mm,
know me, I use music with my reading program. So when I learned about a woman who was very successful using music, and here I'm so hungry learning, wanting knowledge. When I learned about the music, that's what hooked me in to work with dyslexic kids, because I saw the dyslexic kids thrived when they were listening to music in the left ear, and they were advancing so fast.
mm, mm.
We were seeing 6 weeks, we were seeing 3-year gains in only 6 weeks of after school intervention, and that's 30 hours. So that's why I went and got my doctorate. It was
Yeah, yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And that's sort of back to an earlier point, isn't it? Like something lights a fire underneath you, and then you just have to chase that road to wherever
Yes.
it ends, don't you?
And it's been a long journey. The schools have a real hard time in bringing music
Mm.
into the classroom. And I get it. When I was teaching in the classroom, the kids want to, they listen to the music and then you see them rocking out. You see them not focusing on their work, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so I get it. Teachers have to rein it in and say, you know what? You can listen if you stay focused. So you turn the
yeah.
volume down just enough where it goes into your brain and keeps your mind calm. I had a middle school student brag to the class, I'm adopted, I have ADHD, and I have dyslexia. And he said, I take Ritalin for the ADHD, but the music makes me learn. He said, the Ritalin
Yes,
calms me down, but the music makes me learn.
yes,
And
yes.
so I think uh, classroom teachers really need to listen to that and let the kids try it in the left ear very calmly. And they need to reach out to me if they have questions, but they don't want to reach out. They think they know how to handle it and they're struggling and they're struggling. Talk to me about dyslexia hacks, because I think I'd really like to talk to you about partnering with you on my website so people could find you on my website and learn about dyslexia hacks.
So Dyslexia Life Hacks,
Life
is a
hacks.
is a website.
I better be careful.
So Dyslexia Life Hacks was sort of the beginning of my embracing dyslexia journey. I had a bullet point list on my phone whenever I talk to somebody and we find out we're dyslexic. It's like, have you found this? So, well, where's a space that can do that? And in the end, I could have that somewhere. So in the end, I created it because I couldn't find anything on the internet with just bullet point hacks. So you go on the website, click on the big button that says to the hacks, and there are about 36 or 37 on there now of that. I mean, its main focus now is the podcast series, which is a different sort of entity, but that's on there as well. But the hacks themselves are all sorts of things, from assistive technology to just simple things like, you ever seen the bed thing for getting your B's and D's around the right way? Yeah. And then hacks are left and right, using things like Google to get words you can't spell. So one of my favorite things to do, if I've got a word I really can't spell, so I was trying to find experience earlier, and I just can't get that one anywhere near something that a spell checker will get right. If I write Jimi Hendrix and my poorly spelled experience, Google will correct it to the Jimi Hendrix experience.
There you go.
Will also give me the album cover, so I know I've got the right thing. It works really well for
Yes.
movies. The example of the website's The Dark Knight and Rises, because then I can take Rises and make sure I spell it right. Sometimes it can give you a problem because it will use American spelling on movies and not British spelling when I'm looking for it.
Yeah, and I see those too.
Yeah, and there's things like that, and there's things like using it's like a timing hack, Pomodoro, whatever it is, named after tomato, an old doctorate student used to use, and it's like timing, working around the brain's natural ability to focus. You have like 20 minutes of focus time with a 5-minute break. Do that 4 times, stop. Then for 30 minutes, you have a longer break. Things like that, just to keep your brain engaged.
Beautiful.
Color coding speeches. So if you're doing a talk somewhere, you've got like the color, each paragraph of it colored, or even just the headings colored.
Hey, you're giving out all my secrets. No, those are really good.
Yeah. So there's a lot on there, and we're sort of collecting a few all the time. And as I say, the podcast series, there's normally a question of what people's favorite hacks are as well, but that you're in that for an hour. So yeah, it's got growing slowly.
Well, that's neat. As people get older too, we default to some of those neurological issues. Maybe we need to break things up after 20 minutes. And I color when I speak, because I have my podcast and I speak at conferences, but I color code the paragraphs to help my mind see them clearer.
It's great, isn't it? Because you go like, I've lost my place. Well, I was in the red section. There's the red section.
Yep. And it's funny when you have things in a color, you could see 2 words in it and it'll tell you the whole thing. Where when it's in another color, you see 2 words in it and you'll get the whole paragraph.
Yeah, and
your mind's amazing.
Hacking the dyslexia's ability to visually see things. So the color kind of ties into that, and different people have different ways, because some dyslexics I know don't like the colors on the text, the contrast, so they use different things. But,
that's right.
Make it fit you. Take the hack, tweak it to your own life, and go from there.
Yes, tweaking it to your own like. I want to share a little simulation we did for Dyslexia Awareness Month. We have a simulation where we have a star that's too long. It's, a star that's outlined, and there's a little alley between the 2 lines, or, like a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. So you have to put the star on your desk, and people at home can try this. Make a star, put it on your desk, and then have a mirror facing you, and then tip it down to face the star. So you have to cover your hand with another paper, but you want to outline that whole star looking in the mirror. And what the simulation is for is to let people know the stress, the pressure, the neurological processing challenge that dyslexic people have. But what one of the guys did, it was funny because he just studied to be a lawyer. That's his bar, and he's not dyslexic, but he said when he knew his starting point, his his visual memory took over. And so he
Yes.
knew that a star is made a certain way, and it
Yes.
helped him with the outlining versus looking in the mirror for guidance.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think when you learn to let something else be dominant, it's just amazing how you could do that in your brain, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I could go on for other analogies, but I don't want to take more time. How about some closing words? Because we should wrap this up, but I'm just so excited to have you back again, Matthew, and
Oh yeah, thank you. No,
learn how
it's been
you're
great.
working.
It's been great to come on and sort of update you where I am professionally, as well as how the website and its now podcast series is getting on. And it's great that you want to reach out to me and touch in with what's going on your end, and I can share a bit more about my story. And like, I hope my
Yeah,
story or people I talk to does inspire people that like, hey, you know, I didn't start my engineering career till my 30s because dyslexia, my perception of dyslexia held me back in my 20s and during school. And now it's quite a thriving career, and it still surprises me this day how well it thrives.
that's so nice. I'm finding that having some of my previous people back to hear updates is really refreshing for people, because there's
Okay.
not a lot of dyslexic adults who are willing to go on an interview on YouTube and talk, because they're very, very introverted as well. So
Yes.
maybe I'll have you
Yeah.
back in 3 or 4 months and
Yeah,
see and
maybe.
get some more progress. All righty.
Okay.
How can people reach you? I'll put it in the text, okay? In the text, I'll put your website so people can
Yeah.
look down below.
Yeah. You can
And
find me at dyslexialifehacks.com, and directly you're on the site, you'll see all the links at the top of the site that will take you to where you want to go. If you want to reach me directly, hit the contact button and send me an email. If not, the hacks and the podcast are on there for you to go and have a look and see what you think.
and we'll join your podcast and see how that sounds, how those are
Yes.
going. Okay,
Yes.
Matthew. Thanks a lot. So thanks so
Thank you.
much. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in and listening to this YouTube in its entirety. My name is Dr. Marianne Cintron. You can find us at dyslexia-solutions.com with any comments or questions, or if you'd even like a 15-minute discovery call, reach out to me. And I hope you have a blessed day. Bye-bye now.